Hello everyone, my name is Amber. Welcome back to my channel, Amber Reads Romance. Today I'm excited because I'm going to be going over some of my favorite male romances. I actually only discovered or started to read male romance last year. I actually did a vlog reading male romance, so I will try to link that down below and remember to put it up in the cards. So check that out if you're interested. A couple of these were a couple were actually in that vlog, so it was a success. But I just love male romance, so hopefully there'll be more videos to come, but these are just some of the faves that I've read this year. So let's go ahead and dive into some male romance. Okay guys, so first off, if you're new here, please make sure to subscribe, like, and comment on my video. I appreciate you supporting my channel. But let's go ahead and start with these recs. So the first one I want to bring up is actually like the first one that I read. And it is one of my favorites. I think it's the best ever. And that is Him by Sarina, Bowen, and Elle Kennedy. I think you've probably seen this a million times, but I heard that this was such a hyped male romance, so I was kind of nervous to get it. I didn't like the cartoon cutesy covers, so I actually went to eBay to buy these ones because I want this hottie on the cover, people. Anyways, I love this romance. This is a hockey male romance between two best friends. They actually went to like this kind of like hockey camp growing up together. They are playing hockey now in college and about to go pro. So you kind of get to see them as they were younger in their teens at this hockey camp, because this is between Ryan and Jamie. And Ryan has basically had a thing for his best friend Jamie forever. And they had a kind of interaction at this hockey camp, and he felt really bad about it because he thought he kind of manipulated the situation for them to fool around, because his friend was definitely straight. And so he kind of like cuts off contact with him and stops talking to him. And Jamie never like understood why he did that. And so, you know, he was kind of hurt by that. Well, they happen to be playing in college now, and they're both playing at the same series. So Ryan decides to go kind of like make amends and apologize for his behavior and how he kind of like ghosted him. And he has been like basically being kind of like one of the coaches at this camp for years while he's in college. And so Jamie decides to do it too. So now they're roommates at the hockey camp, and they start to explore things together because Ryan does tell him the truth that he's gay and all of that. And Jamie is like, why didn't you just tell me? You know, like, he's very open. I love his character. And he starts to kind of look at Ryan in a sexual way. And so it's his kind of self-discovery too, that he may be bi, or is he just really into Ryan? But it's just such a beautiful friends to lovers, and exploring your sexuality. And just, it was hot as hell too. I still need to read Us, the second book on this, but I absolutely love this book. I could not recommend it enough. Okay, so another one that I want to recommend is actually the third book in a series, but you could definitely go in as a standalone, because I got the arc for this book and I read it without reading the other ones, and it didn't hurt me at all. But this is Heart of Smoke by Webster. This is in the Sinful Secrets series. This is book number 3. And this is a really interesting setup. So we have Jude and Tate. And Jude is part of this Park family. They're very high up, a lot of money established in this like town. And he basically is kind of living as a hermit. Like, he stays in this old kind of, his house is kind of falling apart. He does a lot of IT stuff and behind the computer, and he lives with his grandpa, but he also wears a mask, like a latex mask, all the time, because when he was in high school, he actually went to try and save his mom from like this big fire in their house. And he ends up getting badly scarred, and he always wears this mask now. And he basically never got over that trauma, and he kind of secludes himself. Then we have Tate, and he is actually a psychologist, and he is hired by Jude's dad to basically kind of be the family therapist, because they have a lot of crazy stuff going on in this family, which you'll see if you read the other first two books. It's a wild family, and they all kind of need a therapist, but they need it to be like where they feel safe giving out all their secrets and have it be their own personal ones. So the dad's really paying a lot for him to basically come live with them. And he's supposed to come live and stay with Tate because Jude, sorry. Tate's supposed to live with Jude because Jude is the one the dad is most worried about. And Jude isn't having it until he gets kind of possessive and also suspicious. So he moves him into his house. And they start to like kind of get to know each other. And it's crazy because Jude, he always thought he was like straight, but he's starting to get really attracted to Tate. So it's kind of like his sexual awakening too. And I don't know. It was just a very grumpy sunshine. And then you also have Tate has this crazy stalker from this ex-boyfriend that he had that was very abusive. And so he's kind of been on the run from that. And so he thinks coming to this place will keep him secluded and the guy won't find out where he is. But of course, he does. So this becomes their romance, and I loved it. I love this one so much. I think it's such a sweet, like, male romance, and I loved it. Okay, so then I have honestly a book that you could read the entire series, and I haven't finished the series, but all the books that I've read in the series are amazing male monster romances. But the first one, I love it so much, and that is Soul Eater by Mayne. If you're not new to my channel, you've probably heard me talk about this book a few times because I love it. I gave this one 6 stars. It really blew me away. It's one of the sweetest monster romances I've ever read. And like the male romance is very unique, and I love it. So this book is actually set in a kind of a post-apocalyptic kind of setting because there is a rift that opens up and monsters from their world are able to come into ours. So this is like 20 years later into this happening, and you have a lot of like the center of the United States is kind of like wastelands because the monsters don't really like to go to the ocean or anything near water, so that's where people are set up. And then you have like military that are like fighting these monsters. It's a dangerous world that they're living in, and Danny really isn't a good soldier, but he signed up to be a soldier because he had nowhere else to go. It's either that or like you get kicked out into like the wastelands, or you're living in these overpopulated cities. So he signed up for the military. And the military actually sends him and a bunch of these other kind of like lowly soldiers to be kind of a bait for the Soul Eater. The Soul Eater is a monster that comes through like every 5 years, or I can't remember how many years, but he comes periodically, and he kind of like kills randomly that they think is random. And so they want to catch him. So as the Soul Eater lands there and he's killing everybody and he sees Danny, he stops. So they are actually able to catch the Soul Eater, but he won't talk to anybody but Danny. So they kind of start communicating, and then he actually is able to escape, and he takes Danny with him. And so he basically tells Danny, well, you can go back, or you can be out in the wastelands, or you can come with me. And so Danny becomes his like companion on his quest. And the Soul Eater does look like this on the cover. It's like a very black, dark face that he can't really see under the cowl that he has and these horns. But the thing is Danny really likes him. So Danny really likes Wynn, which is the Soul Eater's name. And he starts to be sexually attracted to them. And so he says, like, why can't we just, hook up and have a good time and get, while we're out here. And it was some of the hottest male sex scenes because, the anatomy is a little different. It gets creative, and like they're just so sweet together. Like, it's such a sweet monster male romance. I freaking loved it. And the series is fantastic. Okay, so to switch it up, we'll go to a Mafia one. And this is Mafia Target by Mila Finelli. And this is, I believe, the 4th book in her Italian series. I can't remember what it was called. I think The Kings of Italy. Sorry. And this is between Alessio and Giulio. And Giulio was actually the son of like the head of this Cosa Nostra, you know, out in Sicily. And he kind of had to leave the mafia because he's gay and they don't look good on that. So his dad kind of has him go on the run and not be part of the mafia. So he's kind of off going different countries and everything. Alessio is actually hired to kill him. And he's like a expert, like sharpshooter, and he's a badass assassin. And so he actually is supposed to kill him, and he's found him multiple times, but each time he can't really get himself to kill him. He ends up following him to a club one night, and they randomly, you know, hook up. Like, he gives him a blowjob, and he's like really into it. But he continues to follow Giulio, and then he ends up going to, I believe I don't remember if it's in Scotland. It's a very secluded place. And they're kind of stuck on this little like island together because Giulio figures out that this guy is trying to kill him. And but they have this insane chemistry. Alessio was also the one that had shot his father, tried to kill his father, like, you know, in the first 2 books. So there's a lot of shit there that could go bad. But they have this insane chemistry, and like they just start the sex, there's a lot of sex in this one. So they start a sexual relationship while they're there. And all the while in the back of their minds is like this fact that Alessio needs to kill him. So it's interesting. It's not my favorite in the series, but I do think it's a really fun one. And I think if you really want some good male spice, there's a lot of it in this one. Okay, so on to one of my favorites. I just read this year, and it is another 6-star romance for me, and that is You and Me by Tal Bauer. This book blew me away. It is so emotional and beautiful, and there's just so much more to it. This is a male romance between 2 single dads. We have Luke. And he is really going through it. He's having a really hard time. His wife had died pretty tragically the year before, and him and his son like do not have a good relationship. His son's in high school. He plays football. He's never really been into football, and it was like kind of his son and the mom thing, and he was kind of pushed out and never really allowed to be a part of it with him. And so now he feels so disconnected from his son. They don't talk. They have no relationship. And so he decides he needs to take a step into the football community. And he goes there, and he ends up meeting Landon, which is Luke's best friend's dad. And Landon is out. He's gay. He was actually previously married, but they got divorced. And he is like the perfect dad. He's so amazing. He's like kind of runs the boosters thing for like the football team. And so he ends up telling Luke, like, you should do this. We set up the stuff at the games. We do dinners for the team and do all that kind of stuff. And, you know, so he basically signs up and starts to become really good friends with Landon. And, you know, he builds this beautiful relationship. Like, this is just such a slow burn, like, friends to lovers. And he's really shocked because he's never been attracted to a man before, but he starts to have like fantasies and dreams and be sexually attracted to Landon, and he doesn't know what to do about it. Meanwhile, this book also just so deals with his slow like regrowth and beautiful rebuilding of his relationship with his son. And it's just, that's a big part of the story, and it really moved me. But this is just so beautiful. It's one of my favorites that I've ever read. So I need to read more Tal Bauer because this was phenomenal. it just had me crying. I was so emotional. Like, you could just feel their love and devotion and how they slowly like come together. They are worried about what, their sons will think, especially Luke with his son and how he's just trying to rebuild this relationship. And now he's, involved with his best friend's dad. So the way it all works out is just so beautiful. So if you have not read this yet, I highly recommend you pick it up because it is one of my favorites. Okay, so then I want to bring up a really sweet one, and that is Goodbye Paradise by Sarina Bowen. And this is between Josh and Caleb, and they actually grew up in a cult. So Josh has been, like, he's known he's gay. And he's kind of not one of the harder workers. They have to do a lot of like manual hard, like farming labor. And Caleb is his best friend, and he's always been really good about that. In the beginning of this book, like something goes down and basically Josh is going to get kicked out of the cult. And so Caleb kind of has feelings that's going to happen. And he kind of warns him, if you get kicked out, go to this location, wait for me. And so that does happen. And so he ends up waiting and his friend shows up. He basically escaped the cult to be with him. And so they start this road journey, a road trip kind of, where they end up kind of hitchhiking with this really nice like truck driver who's super sweet. I loved him. And they're trying to get to another woman that basically escaped the cult. She now is married and is having a baby. And so she wants to help any of them that she can. And so they are going to go stay with her. But as they do this road trip, like, things are discovered because, Josh has been pining for Caleb forever and thought that was like never a possibility. But Caleb has been in love with Josh too. So he's finally able to like let him know. And it's just this beautiful like exploration of being like in love with each other, going through with that, being like, making love and having that type of a relationship and building that sexual relationship, but also discovering how to be self-reliant. They didn't get to go to school or any of these things, and how to like find jobs and to be like, regular people in the real world. So it was just there's not a lot of angst. There's not a lot of like outside drama or anything. It's just a beautiful relationship building between these two. And I really loved it. They were kind of secret about it for a while because, they did come from a cult. They don't know how that girl's going to think of them. You also have those feelings that were pounded into your head by this cult that's wrong. So they do have to overcome that. But it was just so beautiful, so sweet, and I loved it. Okay, another one of my favorites is Saint by Sierra Simone. This is her third book in like the Priest series. I didn't like Priest. I thought Sinner was good. Saint blew me away. So like if you're not interested in Priest or Sinner, you don't have to read them. You could just go into this one. And honestly, it's an amazing, it could be a standalone. This is such an emotional romance. As you can see, I love the emotional ones. And this is between Aiden and Elijah. Aiden is one of the brothers from these books. And he was actually with his brother's best friend. They were together in a relationship, but Aiden really struggled with a lot of depression and deep depression where you kind of want to unalive yourself feelings and anxiety. And he just was suffering so badly from that he ended up kind of like leaving his boyfriend and going to become like a monk. So he really worked through his depression, anxiety, and all those self-hatred things through his faith. And he's been doing that for a couple years, I believe. And then Elijah shows up. He actually writes for like a newspaper or whatever. And he wanted to do a story on the monks where he's living. Honestly, he just really wanted to get closure because he's engaged. He's about to get married. And he wanted closure on what went on with him and Aiden. And they end up doing this road trip that they're going to do that Aiden was going to do for, I think it was different, like the monks that were like making beer and all this kind of stuff. And so they end up going on that together so he could write the story about that. And this is the angstiest romance, people. Like, you could feel how much they loved each other, how much Aiden wanted to be with him, like the love and the need for each other, but they were like not going there. Oh my God, it was so angsty. But I loved this so much. And I think Sarah Simone handled like the depression and those triggers really well, and was an interesting way to talk about that kind of thing. So I absolutely love this romance. It is angsty. It's sexy. You know, Sarah Simone, she will bring you some nice spice. So, but I could actually feel these two's connection and love for each other so much more than like the previous two books. So it's honestly my favorite Sarah Simone, and I would highly recommend that one too. Okay, so the last one that I want to bring up is one I actually just read, and it was really fun. So instead of all these emotional ones that I bring up, let's do this fun one. And this is Fake Out by Finley. And this was like a fake dating one. And it was a very interesting setup. I didn't know how I was going to feel about it when I read it, but it was actually really cute and funny. And this is between Maddox and Damon. And Maddox actually was in a relationship, you know, when I think he was like 18 or something, that he had a hard time getting out of. He didn't want to be in it. He wanted out of this town that he lived in. And so he basically told his girlfriend he was gay. But of course she told the whole town, and now he ran into her and she's getting married and she invited him. And so now he needs to go home, and he basically, his best friend, she's, you know, a girl best friend that he has, offers up her brother. Her brother used to play like baseball, was going to go pro, but he had an injury. And so now he's trying to be like an agent, but he doesn't have any clients. And so he kind of has a hookup to get a client. So he's going to be his fake boyfriend at this wedding. And so it's a really weird setup. You think you wouldn't really like Maddox for doing that, but you know, he was a young kid. He didn't really think it through. But he basically starts to have an attraction, you know, to Damon in this. And he like dreamed of him like right next to him, because they were sharing a bed at his parents' house. And he's kind of like, whoa, like I'm attracted to him. Now he does bring up that he did kind of experiment in college, but it was like, you know, one guy and it wasn't anything. So he just thought it wasn't really that big of a deal, but he is attracted to Damon. They kiss a couple times and he can't stop thinking about him after that trip. So they start to like kind of hang out and work things through. Damon had a, you know, friend, and he has his own drama with a friend that he had kissed and then tried to be like, oh, you manipulated me into kissing you and I'm straight and blah, blah, blah. So he kind of is leery to do that with a first timer that didn't really know he was into men before. But they do start this really cute, sweet relationship. And it was just really funny. It was an interesting setup. It had some great side characters. I'm going to definitely continue on with this series. But I really love this one. It was just like a funny, sweet one to go to. So those are my male romances for today's video. I'm planning on probably doing more because I do love these. I love male. If you have any recommendations, please leave me a comment down below. I would love to get some more recs. But thank you so much for watching this. As always, please remember to subscribe, like, and comment down below. And I will see you on the next one.